Hi everyone, Mark Merrill with Firm. The Maine Democrats now are the outsiders. Maine Governor Janet Mills, as you see, keeps faltering and stumbling through the weeds and mud holes she's created by fraud and taxation without representation against Maine citizens like you and me since she took office in 2019. Now, we at Firm, folks, will inspect just some of the Mills' mistakes and how Maine citizens can stop the bullying and the attacks on our costs of non-living or expensive living, plus political changes that must take place this November. We'll also look at some of Maine Policy Institute's articles and issues that they've come out with recently about failed policies and empty seats of Ms. Mills and the legislature's final session of fiscal year 25-26, which ends around the 1st of May. We'll go over a couple of things on a tax increase fact sheet cover by Maine Policy and how the panic is starting to set in with Mills freezing Maine care funds. And also, Democrats add the tax hike to a budget. It's overflowing to begin with. Now, for starters, ladies and gentlemen, it's apparent that Ms. Mills is now showing signs of desperate detractions and reactions to get voters' support before the June 9th runoff against radical Democrat himself, Graham Plattner. But when Mills spoke at a recent speaking engagement, barely 20 people showed up. I bet as she looked out over the lousy-looking horizon, not exactly something that she wanted to see, folks. Or for that matter, anyone would want to see this sort of thing. Isn't that wonderful? Somebody actually took the time to go ahead and check out that there were barely 20 people there. But there it is. It's like, good grief. Are you kidding me? But that wasn't all, folks. That wasn't all. She got defensive when confronted by Dr. Mehmet Oz's inquiry on Maine care fraud status and got quite politically rude, actually. And we'll get onto that here in just a second. But as for the failed policies, we're going to run right through that one, folks, here on this short but accurate and detailed piece of information about the Maine Democrats falling to the outsiders. And we certainly hope that happens in November. As for the run against Mr. Plattner, Ms. Mills is talking to tiny crowds, as we just showed you, and you still see there. And while Plattner was trying to defend himself, again having to apologize for saying something offensive, but the buzz the past week came from an AI, artificial intelligence ad of Plattner released by the NRSC, which might be kicking off a new type of negative campaigning. Oops. As for Maine Policy Institute, folks, they've been sounding the alarm as well as the Maine Wire and ourselves, and some minor news organizations who at least care about the First Amendment, about Mills' supplemental budget and the harmful impact of LD 1089, a bill we won't go into in detail, that would establish the new 2% income tax surcharge on high incomes. Who the hell thought of this? Bernie Sanders? Applying an additional tax on Maine taxable income greater than $1 million. Each proposal on its own raised serious concerns about higher taxes, increased complexity, and a less competitive economic development and environment for all of us here in the state. In addition to that, folks, Maine Policy CEO Matt Gagnon, recently interviewed for a video by Christian Broadcasting Network on YouTube, commented on the U.S. Senate race titled Maine's U.S. Senate race could signal direction of national politics. Mr. Gagnon said if Susan Collins ends up losing this in some way, then that's very likely bad for the Republicans in the House and gubernatorial elections across the country, not just here in Maine, but other Senate races. If she falls, it's not a good sign. Now we're going to move on here a little bit, folks, and show you what exactly Janet Mills has been going through and what she's tried to do as she's panicked. Oh no. And the fact that she wants to make sure that what you hear and what you see about everything going wrong with the fraud of Maine Care isn't exactly true. But you know what? She's lying again. Oh, go figure, folks. A politician lying. So, here you go again, Janet. Trying to dig your way out of this hole. It ain't gonna happen. Let's just get that a little bit straighter for you, folks. There we go. Here comes the unpleasant, gory details, as we used to call it. So here that is. You see, Ms. Mills froze Maine Care's most defrauded programs amid the Trump administration and his oversight committee, led by the Republicans, probing into what in the hell are you doing over there, Janet? Or up there in Maine, maybe we should say. The reckoning over Medicaid fraud committed largely by New Americans, another organization that Mills created back in, I think it was 2023 or 24. Couldn't have been that long ago, folks. We remember posting it here on one of our firm podcasts. But Mills was taking the unprecedented step of freezing enrollment in 4 of the most defrauded programs in Maine Care. On April 13th, the Office of Aging and Disability Services, or OADS, paused temporarily accepting and reviewing of initial applications from entities seeking to become approved waiver providers under Maine Care Benefits Manual Sections 18, 20, 21, and 29. Why is that important? We're going to get to that. The move, announced by the Department of Health and Human Services Office on Aging and Disability, is a terse email. That's how it came down. After Governor Mills announced her Democratic Senate campaign. Now, sections, it says here, according to a copy of the email obtained by the Robinson Report, good old Steve, can depend on him just like the wind's going to blow tomorrow. But as Steve Robinson keeps posting every, I think, at least 2 or 3 times a week on his Robinson Report through the Maine Wire, folks, he got to it there. And he says that a copy of the OADS said it will block new entrants to 4 Maine Care waiver programs that have been at the center of sweeping Medicaid fraud allocations. Ooh. Including Section 18, 20, 21, and 29. Section 21, though, is the big deal, folks. Why? Because here it says the program that funds autism group homes throughout the state and attracted significant attention due to the proliferation of group home agencies owned and staffed by, hold on to your seats, folks, Central African migrants. Oi. Includes Portland's-based Paragon Residential Services, which we'll get to on the figures on that, as we're just going to briefly go through at least 2 or 3 of them. So, audits abound, shall we say, as far as Janet's concerned. That's for doggone sure. Now, here's where it gets interesting with confrontation, as we just mentioned to you here, folks, on being contacted by the Department of Health and Human Services and Dr. Mehmet Oz. Maybe you remember this, but we'll review. Ms. Mills was trying to run two plays simultaneously in public. Mills had been defiant because when Dr. Oz sent his February 6th letter, way back in February, demanding that Maine answer 33 specific questions about its Maine Care program integrity within 30 days. Now, let me see. Simple math isn't that hard, folks. See, February 6th to March 6th, that sounds about right. But Mills said the state sent back a comprehensive response making clear that the state of Maine is conducting oversight to ensure that Maine care providers are held to high standards of care. Said the bulldog. But when pressed further, Mills accused the Trump administration of weaponizing fraud allegations for political purposes. She starts getting defensive. Oh, what do you mean? Right. Let's be clear, she said. Maine is facing political attacks from a president who uses allegations of fraud. No, Janet, not allegations of fraud. Actual fraud. These are not allegations. You have to be more clear than that. Lies. But she said using that allegation of fraud as a pretense to send ICE officers and other weaponized federal agents into states led by Democrats with devastating consequences. In private, however, the picture looks quite different. Maine Wire viral video exploring ghost offices, which even John Featherston went to and is still going. See if you can rouse some actual physical bodies to come to the door. In Portland and Lewiston, where multiple seemingly vacant home health agencies are headquartered, Mills administration rushed out letters demanding that the agencies housed in those buildings verify their lists of employees and clients. Uh-oh. Oops. While Mills was telling Mainers the Trump administration fraud inquiry was predetermined and politically motivated, her own DHHS was quietly moving to freeze enrollment for the very programs the feds were asking about. See? The list right here. You wait, we're just going to read you a couple of figures. It'll, well, more than astound you, I think, folks. But top Mills allies, I mean, she still has some, also expressed fear over outside investigators coming in and what they might turn up. In fact, it is known entirely because of Freedom of Access Act, FOIA, you've probably heard of, many times. Requests submitted and paid for by the Robinson Report. Not going to get away from Mr. Robinson. So, Maine officials fear congressional subpoenas amid the House Oversight Committee probe of Medicaid spending, as we said in just a brief statement earlier. According to brief previous reporting, Gagne Holmes, the DHS commissioner, Sarah Gagne Holmes, privately expressed anxiety about avoiding a congressional subpoena. Oh no! As federal investigators have tightened the focus on Maine's Medicaid program, that was preceded by a secret directive Mills' pet Attorney General Aaron Fry at the time. And you know what he went and did? Aaron Fry then issued an order to DHS employees instructing them not to speak to Department of Justice attorneys. Nope, don't do it. Now, folks, here comes the bad news. What? I thought that was the bad news. Oh, there's more. So, a brief look at what you see right here in these columns, folks. The fastest growing Medicaid firms formed in Maine since 2021, all of them are billing under Section 21 or other programs that have now seen new enrollment frozen. Just earlier, you'll recall, Paradise Residential Services, Portland. From 2021 through 2024, $15.8 million. Frozen. Closer to us in the Waterville area, folks, Skowhegan to be exact, the Hearts of Angels Home Care for those same years. Dissolved. $1.9 million. There's lots more there, folks, as you can see on the list. It's getting ridiculous, and it's getting deep for Janet. Now, to get close to the end of our program, what we want to do here next, folks, is coming up with some information from Steve Robinson and what he found out as to who was actually going to try and accuse, you may recall, move this over a little bit there for you, Billy Bob Falkingham, accused of not obeying child labor laws. So we changed topics and gears a little bit for how the Mills administration went after Mr. Falkingham, illegally, by the way, through the Maine Department of Labor for violating child labor laws and to distract, yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right, to obviously detract and distract from the fraud investigations and millions of dollars shifted from good Maine citizens who need it to the Somali daycares and healthcare fronts with nobody around except the money's going into their pockets or being sent overseas to Somali terrorists. Now here's a brief rundown by Maine Wire editor-in-chief Steve Robinson, who explains who went after Mr. Falkingham and at what cost.
Making $100,000 a year in taxpayer money to carry out the jackbooted thuggery of the Rainbow Mafia. I mean, this is, Janet might have signed off on this, but this is Jeremy Kennedy, her chief of staff, who is, cohabitating with Matt Moonen, the majority leader in the House. This is pure Democrat leadership, Rainbow Mafia, Thug 101. That's exactly what this is. And they'll come for each one of us. They'll come for anybody who sticks their head up, anyone who complains. So it's a two-pronged war. It's a war on traditional Maine work ethic, the traditional New England Protestant work ethic, kids getting involved in working and learning, skills, the kind of kids that Jeremy and Matt will never have. They'll never have to teach a kid how to work on a lobster boat. And it's a war on political dissent. And all of it is repugnant. And every single Democrat lawmaker, every government employee, state employee who sits silent while something like this happens, shame on you. Shame on you. You'll go stand on some overpass with a Ukraine sign or put your hate has no home sign in your front yard, but you can't stand it. You want to talk about fascism? You want to talk about government tyranny? This is what it looks like when the leadership of the minority party has the full weight of the government coming down to try and crush him with tens of thousands of dollars of fines. This is exactly what it looks like. And a responsible society, a serious society wouldn't tolerate this kind of thing. And Bart wouldn't be allowed, to show his face in public for fear of people hissing at him and screaming, shame, shame, like in Lord of the Rings, or what is it? Not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
That's what's going on, folks. Sickening. It's despicable. Nobody should have to live under that kind of pressure. Even our own Republican Party members. Now, get to the point of this one right here, folks. It was Janet Mills' chief of staff she sent after Mr. Falkingham. Who is he? He's right there. Little brief bio on this wonderful guy. Not. See if we can bring that a little bit closer so you can see him. This wonderful, despicable face. All to see. At the time, Governor-elect Mills, in December of 2018, announced the appointment of Jeremy Kennedy as her chief of staff and serves as co-director of the transition effort along with Ben Grant. Jeremy is a world-class strategist, a skilled manager, and a trusted advisor. Yeah, right. His adept leadership and breadth of experience make him well-positioned to serve as chief of staff and to help lead the charge as we address the high costs of healthcare. Don't forget, folks, this is in December of 2018. Still, lead the charge to address high costs of healthcare. Sure. Expand the economy. Now, tax us to death. And improve public education in Maine. What are we? According to the Department of Education, at the federal level, we're next to last. We're 48th or 49th in the whole country in reading, writing, and arithmetic, or math, science, the whole bit, folks. She finished off introducing Mr. Kennedy by saying she was excited to have him at her side, undertaking an important piece of work on behalf of the people of Maine. Now, here's a little bit more information on Mr. Kennedy, folks. He served as campaign manager for Janet Mills, yes, where he helped achieve a historic victory as she won more votes than any governor in Maine history, blah, 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 blah. But prior to serving as campaign manager, he served as the director of advocacy, Maine, at Planned Parenthood of Northern New England. Now, another gentleman. Here's the other one that Steve Robinson was talking about, folks. Bart Hutchinson. They were both advised by Janet Mills herself to go after and fine and harass and make sure that he paid hefty fines for violating child labor laws, which weren't even in existence, didn't even come close to him violating any child labor laws. Mr. Falkingham is innocent of all this, as you heard from Steve Robinson. Thuggery and downright political hate and financial attacks. Gotta keep that in mind, folks. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us on FIRM, Fairness in Reporting Media. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can reach us. And we're going to change here a little bit so you can see our wonderful picture of our car, which is all over central Maine on a regular basis. But as we conclude, folks, we just want to say, for your part, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls may be voting for the first time, 18 and over, get in touch with your legislators. Really take action against the Democrats in Maine to stop the attacks, stop the fraud and violent behaviors, and demand respect for our total rights and freedoms here. And make Maine a real vacation land again for our families and our visitors. Contact us anytime, folks. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as we said. fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. We're on X, YouTube, and Substack. Everyone stay safe. Peace to all.